People have talked and speculated about the Great Awakening, and the posts have said the 99% of the people would be put in the hospital if the truth came out. So they have to control the truth. And one of the things that I believe is part of this is our hidden history. And I could tell you guys by construction and understanding how to read prints and life experiences has led me to this point. So I want to show you guys this. This is one of the Twilight Zone or the Matrix, that we're living in a reality that we don't have based on truth. And so let's just take a calculator. And I covered where I got that picture from in later videos, earlier videos. And that picture is of Santa Fe of 1873. So we'll do 1873 minus 1881. Okay, within 8 years. So 8 years, they built all of this. And so before this picture, I don't know how long it would have took them, but you have to think about it before they got the train. If this was in 1873, so they got the train in 1872. So they would have had to build this, I guess, within a year in order to get all this material, because this material had to been shipped in through wagon. And I could tell you right now, from living in Colorado, the only thing that's available for trees is cottonwood, which you can't really use for building because they're just not adequate. And then the next you would have is pine. And the problem with the pine trees in Colorado is mostly up in the hills. And then you have to think about logistics to get it down. And so what I'm trying to tell you guys is there's no way they could have built. And when you look at these buildings, they were well crafted by well trained, skilled labor. Okay, so it's not just some jackass swinging a hammer. These guys actually knew what they were doing, and they had to use Stone Age tools, basically hand saws. They had no power tools. So when you think about what they had to build with, and so when they were actually mixing the mortar for the buildings, they actually had to do it by hand, basically. And you think how long that would actually take before they actually got machinery in there to be able to do that. Okay, so this is the picture on Santa Fe. When you really look at this picture, look at all of the development in the background in 8 years, all of this housing, all of this infrastructure. I mean, when you look at this picture and realize that it's 8 years, you can't not help but just realize that this is a fictional story. I mean, this really is a fictional story because you see the housing in the back right here along this hill. You see CF&I being built. And there's so much of Pueblo to cover, and doing these videos is really hard because I could make these videos like 20 hours if I really took the time to lay it all out and put all of it into one video to show you guys what they built. And you notice that this is a brick building, this is a brick building. And so you have to think about the materials, where did they get them? And I'll show you actually where Pueblo had two brick plants. So they had one built before the one that they said was the largest brick plant in the United States in 1891, and it actually took up about 3 city blocks. So, I mean, it was a fairly good size brick plant. Okay, so there's so much to cover, and to give you guys an idea, let's start off with what they really had is this. Basically, you had migrant workers coming from all over the United States speaking all these different languages. So one of the things was at the mill they had 40 different spoken languages just alone at the mill. And let me actually grab that picture. Okay, so I screenshotted this, and I want to go over more than 40 languages spoken at the steel mill alone. And over 2 dozen foreign language newspapers were printed in Pueblo, Colorado. Okay, think about the mass migration. I mean, you have a perfect example of it today. I mean, what they've done in the past, they've done today. So, put two and two together and critically think. And so when you think about this, could you imagine the cluster mess that this actually would have been trying to coordinate anything for building and work? I mean, you'd had translators for everybody. And that's just it. You come to a place out in the middle of nowhere in the United States, and you build these towns and I've gone over some other maps, and I'll continue down that road. just out of nowhere with a bunch of cowboys. Okay. And they built towns like this to first start off with, and then they just magically went to brick and laid everything out perfectly. And so Pueblo, Colorado basically was founded in 1870. So, when you think about that, I mean, you have it's just this mass explosion of population. I mean, it would be absolute chaos. I mean, Jesus, they can't even handle what's coming across the border now. You think that they're going to be able, I mean, the United States was able to handle that back then? I mean, it would have been tent city all over the place. Okay, more examples of what they built during then, and that's just it. When you look at our history and you watch TV shows like Hell's on Wheels or 1883, I mean, it gives you a real idea of what they built and how they traveled and what means of technology that they had available. So if you go to these old maps, I brought this one up of Tacoma, Washington, 1893. Okay, if you go into these, you can actually make out what some of these places are. And if you lived up in Washington, you'll know what they are. And so, like a courthouse like this, imagine the skilled labor that it actually took to build that. And they built these grandeur buildings. I mean, we built beautiful buildings. I mean, if we were not proud of our buildings, I don't know what to tell you because there is definitely pride that went into all of these. And so here's one of the things I want to point out. We don't really think about finances and stuff, but listen to what you would hear on the news today, how it affects everything. So here's a list of recessions in the United States, and you go through this, and you see just year after year, just nothing but hardships in the United States. And so the ones that I wanted to focus around was basically where the West was built, basically between 1870 on up. I mean, I know that we had started settlements and cities, but for the most part, to be able to really start growing was about 1870 when they got the Transcontinental Railroad in, and I covered that in another video. But the panic of 1873 all the way to 1891 is about 18 years. And out of that would be about ten years of just recession, money problems. And so when you think about that, you have to think about the grander scale. Where did they get the money to build all of these grand buildings? And it took a lot of money to build these, especially the detail that they're in. Here's one of Denver, and you can go through. And then it's really interesting, like our architect and our building quality and our building style changed after this. It went to pure shit. Like there's no way we could build anything like this today. They didn't have any of the little toys we have today to make construction easier. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is when you only have a horse, it gets real difficult. Think about that. If you had to get a horse today and to actually think about moving all this stuff with the wagon, think how long it would take you to do it. And that's the thing. People need to like think about things critically. Some of the buildings that they built in Washington. I mean, look at this. Well detailed, well arched out building. High quality. And see, that's the thing. They used high quality materials and construction on the building for labor. I mean, these guys had pride in their work, is what they did. And it shows on everything. If you look at today, there's no pride in work. And trust me, I, millennials today, I'll tell you right now, it's a whole different breed of them with construction. It's like they know what they're doing, and yet I've watched them just hack up some of the easiest shit. So if we go on, this is one of the mills that they built in Pueblo. I just wanted to give you guys a size and scope of how big this is. And in the back over here is CF&I, and I'll draw right here. This is CF&I, largest steel mill east of the Mississippi. And think about let's these little guys right here, full-grown men right there, but they look really little. Let's stop drawing on that, and let's look at the scope of this. Here's a comparison in size, just to really give you how massive this plant was. And that's just one of five. And so when you go down here, Santa Fe, and Santa Fe in second. This picture is in 1873. And if you go down here, I'll show you where the cottonwood tree is. Let's draw that in. Okay, that's the cottonwood tree. Here's Union Street. Here's the bridge that's going over, and I'll show you in the maps. So what I have is a Sanborn map, and this is how I was able to find a lot of what I was looking for. And so here's Union Street and Hobson. See, and that's the thing is they actually changed some of the names on the streets. So when they actually built all this, and I have a couple more of these Sanborn maps, you can see that they built a Union Depot right here, the first one, and they actually built a second one, and I'll go over that too. So I'll pull this back over there. All right, so the cottonwood tree, I covered that in my last one of my last videos. It was 88 feet tall and had a circumference of 29 feet in diameter. Imagine taking that out with hand tools, how long that would take you. And so one of the things is I want to show you guys Union Street, and I'll show you where that cottonwood tree was cut down. It's cut down about right here. And this is earlier of Pueblo, Colorado. Take a notice at all the buildings that they have. And this is the Victory Hotel. And I was able to figure that out by the Sanborn maps. They're very detailed in the buildings and naming them. And I want you to look at all these buildings that are already here. And I don't know when this photograph was taken. I'm assuming somewhere after 1883 because the tree is cut down. Here's it catching more south. And you'll see right here when I draw this out, this building right here is the first train depot that they built. And it's pretty good size. And then this building right here is what you need to look for, these parapets, and the next one's coming up because this building's here. And then you'll notice there are no trees here. I'm going to show you why. So here's another one where it shows what they had built compared to the other one, just this massive explosion of growth. And then you'll see a bridge back here going over 6th Street. And then you tag these buildings from the ones that survived that building. So that's the thing is basically they've built like buildings 3 times, it seems like, all within basically 30 years. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, here's the next one and the one before. And you look at the buildings. In this one, you could see the massive smelting plant that they put in. And then right here, you'll see the parapet. And then if you look, all of these stone buildings have now come in. And then they still have the original depot that they first built. If we go back one, I mean, you could just see it. And how did they build this all within 30 years, basically? So we either been here a lot longer than anyone's ever thought, or our history is definitely not what it. If this is what it is, everything's on the table. And so this is the one I could actually put together and show you guys like just this massive build. They replaced the bridge. Look at these tree growth. Now for trees to really get this size takes about 20 to 30 years. You can see the parapet right here. And all these stone buildings, brick buildings, and the smelting plant. And then you could see buildings come and disappear and go. Once again, I want to show you Santa Fe, showing you looking at Union Street down here. And so when you pull this thing apart and you really start looking at it, here's one Sanborn map from 1883. All the highlighted areas show what they have in the map where you can actually go to three and it'll take care, it'll be this whole highlighted area. And then this is kind of cool. Some of the buildings they actually put down on the map. And you can see the Union Depot and the Victoria Hotel. And then the next one, this one is of 86. You can show where they actually added on to that and they built a roundhouse. Think about all the construction, smelting plant they covered in this one. And here's the thing, Pueblo basically the way it grew was it said it just incorporated other parts of the town. This one's 1889 and it just shows more of it which was probably already there. And I'm wondering if somebody didn't change the dates on these, honestly, because all of this was built, and I'll show you a map. Got one more, and I'll show you a map of 1900. Okay, I can't remember which one this one was. 93. Just this massive explosion. And so, what I also want to tell you, when you look back at the finances that the United States had, there should have been none. We should have had more money than anybody knew what to do with. But yet we didn't because they had all these financial problems. It's like the John Galt series when you really look at it. So these are my videos. I know people are probably just like, nah, this there's no way, but I'm telling you, something is not adding up in our history. And when you go look through all of our history, like world fairs and San Francisco and Seattle, it does not add up to what we built with what technology was available and how we all of a sudden just exploded in technology to build like nobody's ever seen before. And yet we don't build like that today because we can't. It costs too much. We don't have the skilled labor to do it. So how did they have it back then? It's time to really critically think about everything and question the narrative.